The recording.
I don't think I can share screen, Sam.
Oh. That is annoying. Said that it should. Who can share? All participants.
There we go.
Is that working now? Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ali. I'll let you
Lovely.
introduce yourself and get going.
Thank you so much. Yes, first I would also just like to acknowledge country, particularly the lands that I'm on now, of the Boimerong, Woiwurrung, and the Wotherong people of the Kulin Nation, and just acknowledge our academic Indigenous unit at VU, headed by Karen Jackson and her guidance, and I guess just pay tribute to the deep knowledges that have been here, like Sam said, for tens of thousands of years. So just to get started, can everyone see? Am I good to go? Lovely. All right, so I am Alison Baker. I'm at VU in the Youth and Community Studies area, and I go by she, her pronouns. And today I'm just presenting with two young people who were in the We Hear Youth project who have gone on to create their own youth-led organization, Activate Youth Voice. So that's really exciting. I'm going to try and speed through, so apologies if you feel like it's a bit of a tornado, but we have a pre-recorded presentation from Billie, and AJ's going to talk about the projects that happened after this. So you can email me if you want more info or anything like that. So I'll just get moving. So we're just presenting on behalf of a broader collective. So just to acknowledge all the different members that we had in this project. It was funded by the Department of Health, and it was in the Loddon Mallee area, aiming to train young people to become, at first it was more around peer interviewing, and then the focus was more on all aspects of research, just acknowledging that if you don't have the full sort of range of research skills, there's often ways that voice and participation can sort of be co-opted and controlled. So that was one of the main things that sat underneath this project. So Thorn Harbour Health was the commissioning and sort of lead organization on it, and we worked with YLab and VU to deliver the training. Just a bit of background. This project is part of a whole series of research projects that we've done over the last couple of years, as it seemed like there was a lot more need to do this kind of work sort of, in a time of crisis. But just to kind of highlight how interconnected they are, in that first project that we had in 2020, the pandemic hit when we were in the midst of trying to create sort of a local knowledge base by interviewing young people, youth workers, and surveying young people about not only the issues that they felt were most relevant for them, those age 16 to 25, I should have clarified, but the ways in which I suppose they had participated in different programs and within institutions, just to get a gauge of what was happening, and to use that, or to hope to use that to inform other initiatives and that sort of thing. So we are actually launching that report now, if you believe it, 2 years later. It's over 100 pages, so you may not end up reading it all, but you can always extract out bits that you like, and we'll send that around, Sam, if we're allowed to. But everything that we did in that project, I feel like has resonated throughout all the projects that followed on from it. It was like just the reverberations of what young people were saying. We used that directly to inform how we approached and framed other projects. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that, yeah, a lot of the framework and sort of curriculum that we go over today is really informed by that. So these were some of the key considerations, and I won't read them all, but it was really just about the need to reconnect and build a sense of community were some of the really important things. Obviously, prioritizing well-being and mental health is something that we have seen, but particularly in social justice work in institutions, it's often still a focus on output, productivity, and as one young person said, not being able to bring their whole selves to those kinds of projects. So I think the other one that I would like to flag is just 5 and 6 around looking at the different ways in which participation can be compromised. But in particular now with the government's focus on voice and co-design, co-option, I think a lot of times we're finding ourselves in an advocacy sort of activist position where we have to argue for why it shouldn't just be an extracted process, why it should be allowing power to move, and we should have these more horizontal leadership approaches with young people and embedded into institutions. I think that was one of the really kind of strong things that came out of that report, which is really relevant to all of us, obviously. So sorry, my cat's sitting in front of the my slides at the moment. So just the aims of this project were really to create a local network of youth researchers, and there was an education training sort of focus, which, yep, is happening a lot at the moment, but a good thing. So looking at how we can develop leadership capacities, but also thinking about participatory action research as a precursor to other education and training employment opportunities. And then also about creating clear channels for youth voice in place-based projects, particularly in rural Victoria, where some of these programs are not, I guess, as many or as easily accessed. Excuse me, Millie. Okay, so just a little tiny bit snippet, and I'm really happy to send out anything else that people want to know sort of more about the underpinnings of youth participatory action research. But it's really, it's quite similar to co-design in a way, except that the focus is a little bit more on following the research process. So around developing the research question together, identifying the kinds of methods and approach you're going to use, and working in a collective to really, I guess, kind of ensure that you've got a multitude of perspectives, and also, I guess, tapping into some of those other recommendations around mentorship and relationship building. Those are some of the key things. And I guess in contrast to a lot of research, it's really looking to create change at multiple levels. So just some of the selected values and commitments, and this is from Maria Torre in the US. She has a really good framework for youth participatory research as sort of more of a political project. So places value on lived experience of historically marginalized communities. Knowledge production is not objective or value free, so it is a political task, particularly when you have young people who have not been deemed the experts or the knowledge holders in a lot of settings. Attends to issues of power and vulnerability throughout the research with who you're researching, but also within the collective. A focus on relationships, and then obviously that multiple layers and levels of action and change. So the approach that we devised was one that we really thought about in terms of what we'd learned from the other projects, and also those frameworks that have been put forth by other people doing YPAR. So it was around having a living curriculum, which is really just acknowledging the ways in which we have sort of intersectional knowledge that can inform, you know, the issues that are important, how we see them, how we might look at them, and one that's constantly evolving. So something that we tried to have that AJ and I were talking about yesterday is like have a structure, but make sure that structure is flexible, it's bendable, it's movable, it's constantly evolving based on people's interests, based on the ways that they learn. And so you'll see we tried to tackle that with how we delivered the project as well, the different kinds of learning resources and that sort of thing. We really had a strong focus on power and critical questioning, because we thought, you know, it's one thing to learn the skills, but once you get in there, you being there and having a say is probably going to be an issue. So we tried to have that focus on, you know, questioning why, you know, they might be questioned. And then here's sort of the lots of text model. So we were looking at all these different elements, which was kind of part of the brief that we were given by Thorn Harbour, but we've kind of shifted it to fit what YLab and ourselves add. So YLab really focused on the leadership and training and the co-design and systems change. And we worked on a lot of the other elements, but we also had Thorn Harbour's expertise in creating safe spaces. And yeah, so it was a very juicy, as Chris Fung would say, collaboration. And on top of that, we were looking to research this model. So we obviously collected data with the young people who participated. And so the curriculum involved, well, what would have been all in-person sessions, but ended up not being. We went into one of those snaps in March, was it? I think 2021. And it was a very, AJ will probably tell you, condensed program. We did all of this in about 6 months, which seems short, but it was quite intense because we did the training at the same time that we did the brief, which is the practical learning component, which was researching an issue from Campaspe Shire, which Billie will talk all about. So we had our in-person and online sessions, again, shifting and changing those to what would work. So we did have some more one-on-one or drop-in sessions. We created this crazy huge workbook that has all different bits of information, resources, links, everything you could want. We have some cheat sheets and resource toolkits as well. And then we made some short videos. This is just another look at all the different bits. We did some place-based sort of photo voice type mapping at the start to look at community assets and connections to place, as it was a place-based project. So it was really important to get that grounded knowledge, given that the research team was not from the local area. So these are just some of the little bits that we did. And then this is sort of the timeline in another way. So we had, originally it was supposed to be young people 12 to 25, but we had a few of the younger ones drop off, which we thought would happen potentially because it is really difficult to cater to such a wide age range when you're doing research training. So that was an important learning. So 6 stayed on of the 11 that initially started. We had 5 shires represented. We delivered about 10 workshops, drop-in sessions and face-to-face meetings. And these were basically just the topics for each of the sessions. And again, in the sessions, we also did some of the practical work. So developing the research questions as we went along. I might just see how this goes. This is Billie.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Billie Taylor, and I was part of the We Hear Youth project team, and I'm also involved in the Activate Youth Voice group. Thank you so much for coming along to our presentation. I look forward to sharing with you a bit about our training program and our first project with the Campaspe Shire. This project was collaborated by Thorn Harbour Country in collaboration with DFFH to develop the We Hear Youth program, which broadly aimed to build capacity of young people between the ages of 12 to 25, particularly in peer research and interviewing, teamwork, leadership, and research in general. The program draws on the Youth Participatory Action Research, which positions young people as co-researchers, utilising our unique skills and experiences as young people, where we can work together with other researchers and organisations to develop and shape research projects that are youth-informed and youth-led, that work on matters that are important to us. This project was a fully subsidised course, which is fantastic. It was just designed to develop the knowledge and skills of young people in the area so we can form a network of youth peer interviewers in the region. This is one of the big aims of our Activate Youth Voice group, as we are really looking to expand in the future, particularly when We Hear Youth program hopefully has more participants in the next couple of years, and then we can grow our project. We've already added some more young people into one of our latest projects, which was absolutely fantastic. And it was great to see other young people be as inspired by research and youth change as us. They got some training on interviewing and research, and they were able to conduct fantastic interviews, which was great. As a network of youth peer interviewers, we'll be able to work with organisations in the future to develop youth-led change from our diverse experiences as young people. This project collaborated with Thorn Harbour Country, Victoria University and YLab. All of these organisations worked so well together, and it was fantastic to get training from different points of view and have that really diverse range of understanding about our project and about research in general. We had very different trainings from each organisation. For instance, YLab was more kind of teamwork based, leadership, and we got to learn a lot about ourselves and about people that we're going to be working with, which was absolutely fantastic. And I can see the way it affects how we're working together now, which is amazing. Victoria University worked more on our researching skills, our interviewing skills, more about the brief, and it was just, yeah, absolutely fundamental to our skills. In the process of developing our data collection tools and organising, so the We Hear Youth training program involved a mix of face-to-face and online sessions. In total, there were 10 sessions delivered with 2 face-to-face and 8 online. COVID impacted a lot of our sessions. We had an additional face-to-face session and preparation data collection day in Echuca, which was fantastic to get some more responses. We had a key part of the opportunity for the research project was to conduct a small research project in response to a brief from a local government organisation.
We're not getting audio, are we?
Agencies in the project. Given the ultimate goal was to create this network of young people who were working for organisations, this was a great first relationship to make with Campaspe Shire. The practical task for the training program was provided by the Campaspe Shire Council, which was in response to their vision for the future. And we looked at some of the information that they had from young people and tried to find, I guess, a gap, tried to find a community of voices who weren't being heard very well. And we looked at their vision and what they saw for the town and realized there were some voices that weren't being heard. And that kind of, that developed our brief, and that developed our research in the future, which was fantastic. Throughout the process of data collection in our project, we decided to broaden the focus outside of just Campaspe to the broad Loddon Valley region, coming across some barriers in getting participants to respond to our surveys and getting some more interviews happening. We realised that there'd be very, very many similar experiences throughout the Loddon Valley region, and we thought, why not broaden that and broaden the voices that we hear in our project, which was fantastic. And throughout our training program, we were introduced to many community-based approaches to interviewing and research, which was fantastic. We learned about so many different research styles, and that informed the ones that we've used in the future, which were mainly the surveys and the interviewing, which was fantastic. During the sessions, when also in the workbook content, which we had this fantastic workbook of information that we could reflect back onto. A lot of that was about research. And we learned about many of the, I guess, youth-friendly approaches to research and how we can make the experience more comfortable for young people. Our data collection tools were co-designed by us alongside the Victorian University researchers, which provided a really great hands-on opportunity to be involved in research. Like, we were doing everything from the interviews to the coding of the interviews and finding the themes in the interviews to creating presentations like this, which was fantastic. We used thematic analysis as a method to analyse the qualitative data collected through interviews and surveys, which was a really great tool. And I think we all became very, very passionate about qualitative research. This is a little bit about our research process, as I spoke about before. So as I mentioned, we took some time unpacking the brief. We got to speak to Jess from Campaspe Shire a little bit about the vision for Campaspe and a bit about young people in the area and some of the challenges that she thinks they face in the community. We then narrowed that focus. We looked at the picture that we had in the brief and tried to find, I guess, some of the concerns that we thought we saw in the information we were provided, and potentially some gaps, some things that we aren't hearing enough about. We decided that we would focus on retention. What makes people stay? What makes people leave? What does this town need to create a space and and people that are engaged with, and how can we have a community where young people see value in sticking around. We then co-designed our research methods. We decided to go for a survey and a semi-structured interview and learned a lot about those research methods along the way. We then gathered survey and interviewing data, which was absolutely fantastic. We had 11 interviews and 29 survey responses. This process was absolutely fantastic. I loved conducting the interviews and learning more about myself and how I approach interviewing young people was absolutely fantastic. Then the data analysis stage, that was a big stage. As you know, we led a lot of that stage, and we had help from the Victorian University researchers, which was fantastic. It was great to be hands-on in that process and really understand what we're doing. So we learned a lot about coding and a lot about finding the themes from those codes that we were creating. And it was just fantastic to see the data that we were collecting. And then finally, we're presenting and the data to others, which is where we're at today, which is fantastic. And some of the themes we found throughout our interviews and our surveys were absolutely fantastic to learn about. These are some of the issues that were most important to young people in the town, in the Campaspe Shire and the broader Loddon Valley region. People talked about transport, mental health, discrimination and exclusion, drugs and alcohol, and resources in regional towns. We had some fantastic quotes from young people in the interviews and fantastic responses that led presentations like this, and hopefully will lead other visions in the future and other policies that Campaspe may use. And this was some of the top responses from our survey responses about issues that impacted young people. So we heard a lot about mental health. The Campaspe Shire sounding like a place that may not have enough resources for young people, in their opinion. And then we heard from financial insecurity, lack of employment opportunities, drugs and alcohol, lack of things to do, and housing and homelessness concerns. There was a very broad spectrum of concerns we heard from young people, but one of the main ones was mental health, which was, I guess for me, not a huge surprise, as people are becoming more and more aware of the importance of mental health. And I'm very fortunate to say that Headspace Echuca is opening, which is fantastic, and hopefully we start to get less of these responses in the future. Hopefully there are more services for them to connect to, which is fantastic. And we had many, many other issues mentioned. And then we broke it down, some of our themes. So we talked about belonging a lot. And this was one of the reasons, I guess, we saw for why people might want to stay in their town. They feel a sense of belonging to the country and, to their family and to their people. But we also saw that young people wanting to get out of the culture of country towns, finding that maybe perhaps somewhere in the city they can belong a bit better to a more diverse group of people and meet other young people that are like them. There are a lot of different themes. This analysis, which is absolutely fantastic. You can see that spectrum of responses, which was amazing. We also looked at education or employment opportunities. This was another huge theme as to why people might stay or leave. We saw that, unfortunately, smaller towns and smaller communities, people might have had to leave for education or employment opportunities. This was a big part of, I guess, also ties into belonging, because some young people expressed that they would like to stay, however, they had to leave for the job or for higher employment. This was absolutely a fantastic research project. And we learned so much about young people and our communities and what's important to them. And after all of this, we learned a lot about the value of peer research, a lot about, I guess, the importance of being interviewed by someone that you're comfortable with, looks like you, talks like you. And I really loved learning about how to make a really comfortable space for young people. And I think a lot of our interviewers really, really liked the experience, which is fantastic to hear. Many said that it was a more comfortable experience, a more relatable experience, and that was really, really great feedback to have. And, you know, it meant that it was a meaningful youth engagement experience. It meant that youth were leading this project and hearing from other young people. You know, it was a very youth-led research project, which is absolutely fantastic. And finally, it meant that we were able to develop our Activate Youth Voice group. After this training, a few of the participants of the We Hear Youth program decided, why not continue doing this? You know, why not continue meeting with organizations and local councils and informing policies, being consultants for their research. After all of this training, you know, it would be great to continue doing this research. So we are a group of young people from rural and regional Victoria with a diverse range of lived experiences and expertise. We're very passionate about the need for representation and consultation of young people aged 12 to 25. And we aim to increase the engagement of young people within their community and society at large. This includes, you know, policy, informing policy, being involved in youth-led research, and everything in between. We're very open to many different engagement projects, which is very exciting. We provide an interventory body of one or more consultants, organisations and councils. And hopefully we can broaden our horizons for that. And Alex will go into that more further. That's it from me. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you've learned a bit about us and a bit about our project.
Awesome.
Thanks, Billie.
Thank you, Billie. Oh, sweet. So I'm gonna jump on that and just really zoom through who Activate Youth Voice is. So I do have QR codes on the screen, but I'm also going to just shoot through what those QR codes are in the chat as they come up. So this is just our little website that we've made. We are still work in progress on the website. But yes, as Billie said, we're an intermediary group made up of young people. There are about 4 of us who are regularly working in the organization, and we have a few connections to other young people in the area, like we used in our last project, which, next slide, please.
Oops, sorry.
All good.
Fell asleep at the wheel.
All good. So we did, finished the Youth Takeover with the Lord and Campaspe Len, and we are currently on Pathways to Pride with Thorn Harbour Country. Next slide, please. So our last project, How Work Works, was a project that was facilitated by Jeanette Pope in conjunction with Vic Lenz in the Loddon Campaspe area. The project came about in response to the state government's Firth report, which outlines their findings in relation to VCAL and VCE, because they're planning on the state government's planning on merging those two education paths into a cohort again, and are looking for support and suggestions on how to make it as smooth as possible. So with Jeanette, we interviewed, we focused on getting young women into trade, and through that we interviewed, I want to say 15 interviews. But there was some of them had like 3 people, some of them had 4 people, so some of them were kind of more like focus groups. After that, the interview notes were compiled and then compiled into the report, which I've just sent through. And we recently had the launch of that. From there, we went on and helped with the social media campaign. And that's one of the photos there is from the campaign. Awesome. Our next slide, please. Our current project, which this isn't this is just I search rainbow path on Google, but that's actually in Sydney, I'm pretty sure. But no, so the links to there's a first one I'm going to do is there's a survey which if you think if you're in the area and interested to pass through, and a expression of interest form. So this project is currently happening in the Loddon area, so Campaspe, Central Goldfields, City of Greater Bendigo, Loddon, Maston Ranges, and Mount Alexander Shire. We are wanting to hear from young LGBTQIA plus people about their experiences with accessing safe and inclusive healthcare. So we're trying to find what barriers there may be in accessing that in the rural areas. That, as I mentioned, that is currently a work in progress, and we are still accepting expressions of interest for interviews and the survey responses. And now I will open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions, yeah.
Amazing. Thanks so much, AJ, and to Ali and to Billie as well. I'm just filling in time so people can get their thoughts together around questions. So if you have a question to ask, please pop your hand up, maybe use the reactions and raise hand, and I can throw to you. But it's incredible to learn more about youth participatory action research. That wasn't something that I knew a whole lot about, to be honest. And so that in and of itself was incredibly educational, and to hear about the actual experiences that you had as well. I'm interested, AJ, did you know much about any of these topics, things like co-design and
Absolutely not. So my extent before joining this project was I volunteered my time at 2 local youth groups in the Western Ranges, and then through one of them they were like, "Hey, someone's doing this. You should go do it." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then I did it. And now I'm much more confident and I understand a lot more. And I used to hate interviews, especially as being interviewed, because I was very uncomfortable doing it because I'm like, but now I'm pretty chill with it. And now I'm love that I now understand how to make, especially those environments, more inviting and safe. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks, AJ. I'll throw to Maddie, their hand up.
Maddie speaking. Thanks for the awesome presentation. My question is for you, AJ, and it's how did you go from being a part of this participatory project to starting your own organization? What was that little journey like?
So quite quickly, surprisingly. Like thinking back at it, it was the group of us really loved this project, and we had backgrounds in just community work. Some of like Billie works with, I'm pretty sure it's Headspace, and then I've just been in the community, so we've had that community focus ourselves, and we went, hey, we should do this. So we got together, we had a quick discussion, and then went to Ali and Kate, who was part of Thorn Harbor, who is part of Thorn Harbor Country, and was like, hey, we want to do this because we see that there's a little bit of a gap in the industry of, there's a lot of youth consultancy, but not a lot of youth-led youth consultancy. So like not a lot of peer stuff. So then through them, we were like, hey, what do we need to do? How do we do this? We're currently in the middle of trying to find an auspice at the moment, because that's what we decided is the best way to go. So we're in the little medium ground at the moment where we're using our own ABNs for projects, but hopefully within the coming month or two we'll find an auspice. But yeah, there's a lot of things that like we had the idea of, yes, let's do it, and then when we found like every little dot point, like on on our website, we have client info, we have the informational pamphlet, we have our code of ethics and our code of conduct and our charter, which we had to write, which was very, very nice to just put our heads together and go, write what you think should be in here, and then we all go over it and go yes, no, like merge ideas. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and it's been a challenge, but we're here. We are still establishing, but we are keen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, AJ, and thanks to Ali. I'm going to stop the recording there.